And welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposals. I am your host, Coach Donnie Hess, here, back with another SANFL snapshot. We are back. The second season covering the state leagues has returned, and joining me, my two faithful co-hosts, two wonderful legends in South Australia. First, we have the Nuffy of Woodville West Torrens, Mr. Darce Evans. Darce, great to see you, sir.
Coach Donny, how you going? How you going, Phil? Happy New Year, even though it's halfway through February, lads. It's just how fast this time's gone, but exciting times. The trial games have started for the women's, and it's exciting days ahead, weeks
and
ahead.
and caller for SANFL now extraordinaire and great friend of the podcast, who I still have to say I love that on a couple of podcasts last year, couple of broadcasts last year, he gave me a shout out. I love it as per usual. Mr. Phil Aspinall. Phil, great to see you, sir.
Good to see you too, Donny. Happy New Year to yourself and Darcy. And yeah, as Darcy touched on, trial games are here. Great to have SANFL footy back, and already went to a SANFL W trial last week and can't wait to put the headset on and do some calling this coming weekend with my team and Darcy's team out at the Ponderosa of Elizabeth.
Will be,
It,
yes.
it'll be fun. I just wish it was on SANFL now. That's the only thing that that's the only small, tiny, microscopic complaint is I wish I could see some of these trial games. Unfortunately, I can't. But I know that once the home and away season hits, I will have footy galore. Trust me, you should see my diary. It is nuts when you have to cover the waffle and the SANFL, and the VFL isn't even in there yet since their fixture just came out a couple of days ago. So we will stay in South Australia and the SANFL, and I want to go to a topic that hit just after we stopped recording for the last season, and that is in the men's competition. Port Adelaide has decided to petition to join another state league. And gentlemen, I know you were very passionate SANFL supporters. I have to give you your time to address this. I don't want to cover it too much. So we'll start with you, Darce. I know with all of the years of watching this competition, how frustrated are you that
Yeah,
Port and
yeah.
potentially even Adelaide could be leaving the SANFL?
I think they'll probably both go actually. So look, disappointed, Donny. Very disappointed because obviously, look, it's not it just depletes the competition, and it's great to watch some of these younger players come through the SANFL competition that go on to play AFL footy. Look, they do pay dividend too. Like there's a bit of financial. We're going to lose that financial, and then I think whether Channel Seven say, look, it's not like what used to be anymore with Port and Crows out, so they may even pull the plug on the live calling live. On Channel 7, which would be disappointing as well. So there's no winners for me, but there's got to be, they didn't really come out and say the why. They said, oh, it's the way of the world and all that, but no, hang on, we need to do this for financial reasons or because the AFL want us to or whatever. It's just a very, all around for me, disappointing.
Phil?
Yeah, look, I concur, Donny. And I think one of the reasons Port have come out has said that it's an unlevel playing field or an unfair playing field. And I think sometimes they've got the rose-coloured glasses on, because how's it unfair that you've got a majority of full-time AFL footballers that train are paid extensive money? Some players are on more than the whole SANFL team's salary cap versus guys that are part-time footballers, working, tradesmen, physically on the tools. So for me, we've been used to change in the SANFL. In '97, when when Port Adelaide came in, it wasn't the same. Things changed in 2014 when the AFL reserves teams joined the comp. It wasn't the same. It's never going to be the same. And as a mid-40s traditionalist that grew up hating Port Adelaide Magpies, it's going to be sad. It's going to be terrible, to be honest, that they're not in the competition. But it hasn't been the same, and it wasn't the same, and it's never going to be the same. So Port want their cake. They want to eat it too. They go to the VFL. And as you guys alluded to, almost certainly the Crows would follow, because that's what they want to push for, that national AFL reserves competition.
Yeah, and for somebody that I've delved into some of the history and I've looked into it, I just kind of get the feeling. Just I've communicated back and forth with some, I mean, diehard Port fans and Crows fans, and I've asked, and you get the prototypical complaint of it's not fair that we have different rules that other teams don't. Well, and then I kind of kindly say, well, yeah, but you have full-time professional athletes on your lists. They don't. So I understand. It's one of those. I completely agree with your analogy, Phil. It's they want their cake and they want to eat it too. And I think that the fact that none of them have ever won the competition since both have kind of joined, that there's almost this little bit of selfishness, like they want to be able to win it. But then if you kind of give them carte blanche, I worry that then they kind of dominate the competition because of the fact that they have mostly professional athletes that are all on really good contracts, and they don't have to worry about going to the working man's everyday 9 to 5 job. So it is sad because of the history of Port, especially. I mean, Adelaide, unfortunately, they don't have the history because they are a made created team that has no connection to the SANFL that joined eventually. But Port, with all those premierships back before they decided they wanted to join the AFL as well. So it is frustrating. I completely get it. I agree that I think I eventually believe that the AFL will get a reserves comp going, which is for some people would be great. I worry that this is a little bit of a knife to try to end state leagues to where the AFL can kind of run all professional footy, which is a nightmare for me because it's guys like you, it's guys like Paul Persick and Rick Gauchi out in the waffle that I absolutely love talking with because there is so much history. So
Mm.
I don't want to lay on the bad news too much. I kind of want to stay positive. So we will step away from that. And I
Well, just
must
quickly,
ask,
Donny, one last thing. I suppose
go
being
ahead.
glass half full perspective, Port Adelaide want to have their players in the highest standard competition. And you look at what I would describe as a hybrid VFL competition at the moment, which is a mix of
Hmm.
traditional VFL clubs versus AFL reserves teams. And the results most weeks are so skewed. You get teams like Coburg who are struggling and they're getting pumped by 25 goals
Yeah.
by strong AFL reserves teams.
Hmm.
Port Adelaide are going to want to play in the best standard of competition outside of the AFL. Right now, to me, that's the sample. Bias aside, I think the quality of our
100%.
comp
Bill.
is where it needs to be for these AFL guys to be playing at the elite level. So, again, can't have your cake and eat it too. I just say sometimes I think you need to be a bit careful what you wish for, and I suppose time will tell. But it will be a sad day, no doubt, when they leave the SANFL competition.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. I know that my VFL covers that I do, it's one of the things that you kind of get is that most of the unattached clubs are not doing well. Like
Mm.
Frankston, Preston, as you said, Coburg. I mean, one of the few is um, Werribee, who got all the way to the grand final last year, but got pumped
Yep.
by a mostly pretty much VFL side of Gold Coast Suns players. So
Yeah, correct.
it's one of those where I completely agree with you. I think plus the other thing I don't think Port Adelaide understand is that your budget's going to skyrocket if you go to the VFL
Mm.
because you're going to have to go to Victoria every other week, if not 2 or 3 times in a month. And then if you make an AFL reserves comp, well, it's like, okay, are you going to have curtain raisers for each of these games for the men? So it's there. I think there's a few things that are background noise that nobody's talked about because I think that they see the glitz and glamour of, hey, we'll be connected to the AFL. Well, there's a few headaches you're going to have to deal with.
Mm.
Yeah.
Um,
The why, exactly right. Yeah.
exactly. That I don't think they're thinking about. I just think they're thinking, well, the samfle's not coddling us. They're not wrapping us in cotton wool. And I think that it's one of those where they see the grass may be greener on the other side, and they don't really know about the termites that might be in the house.
Yeah.
Not to
Good
use
point.
an analogy, but I'll say it that way. There's it's not always perfect on the other side either. So
Mm.
we will jump to it. You guys know I love my burning questions, so we will go through both the men's and the women's competition with a few questions that I'm interested to know what you guys think of going into the season. So we will start on the women's side since we are in the trial games. And my first one is always, I love this. Who's a team that you're keeping an eye on? I know as a Woodville West Torrance and a Centrals man, I want to caveat this. Take your team out of the equation for just the second. A team not that you barrack for. Who's a team that you're keeping an eye on coming into this season? Darce, we'll start with you.
I would say West Adelaide, and they finished bottom last year. But I think I saw them last week against Eagles. We were brilliant, but Westies they were very very good as well. They matched up with around the ground very well. They yes we won by 4 goals, but that was in the last quarter. They kept right up to date with us until the 3 quarters. They just kicked away in that last quarter. So I reckon I'm going to watch West Adelaide. Look, if they finish 5th or 6th, they're the big improvement from last year, but I reckon they'll just scrape into the finals for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Phil?
Yeah, for me, a little bit similar to Darcy firsthand last week going to the Central Glenelg trial game. I like what I see with the Tigers. I really do. And I think they've got a good mix of quality and youth. They've done some selective recruiting. We'll touch on some ins and outs shortly. But they came out of the blocks firing. And last year, they got off to a good start. They won four out of their first five, and then just had that purple patch in the back half of the year where they just couldn't quite string wins together. So they finished in six wins, six losses. I think we'll see Tigers play finals footy this year. And under first-year skipper Sam Franson, she's been in the system for a while. She's a bit of a veteran. I think she'll lead the Tigers back into finals footy.
Mm-hmm. And I have two, and for two completely different reasons. I'm going to start with the worry team that I'm keeping an eye on, and that's South Adelaide, because they lost. They have several outs. It'll be interesting to see, especially with some of their really young players that got drafted, including Holly Eifold, who's now over in WA, so it's not going to be playing in the SANFL W this year. But you have Brooke Beaulieu and Alyssa Brooke, who both are drafted, so they're only going to be available max for 5 games. So it'll be interesting to see how South Adelaide handle losing a little bit of talent now. They've brought in a little bit, but it'll be interesting to see how South Adelaide. And then for me, I'm going to make one of my panelists smile, and that is Woodville West Torrens on the up. I said it last year as my bold thing of making finals, but I've went back and forth with Coach Norrell Smith a little bit. I checked out a little bit of the write up on their trial game. I think Woodville West Torrens could be a smoky this year. They could be a team that's going to give people headaches. I think Norrell's ladies are starting to find what she wants them to do, and I'm so excited to see this Woodville West Torrens. Could we see all 8 clubs make the finals? For the first time. It'll be so much fun. So I'm really looking forward to watch the Eagles this year for sure. So
just
we'll
an observation on the Eagles as well. Sorry, guys, is having seen them firsthand for their entirety, their I guess participation in the SANFL W, and this will get exciting for Eagles fans. The similarities, I think, to Centrals. You know, they had a couple of years to find their feet in the competition, and they've got a decent coach, a decent playing list, and they've just started to gel. We saw some improvements in them last year, and organically, I think there's going to be some more growth there. So I agree. I think they're on the rise. Not going to suggest I think they can go from where they were to a premiership, but I think they'll play finals this year.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I agree. I think finals is definitely a possibility. But then again, looking at this entire competition, I think this is going to be a very exciting year. I don't think you have an obvious wooden spooner, honestly. Like legitimately do not think you have an obvious wooden spooner. Speaking of that, I know this isn't the greatest transition, but West Adelaide last year had a dismal season, unfortunately, as we said, finishing with the wooden spoon, despite the return of Lauren Young from an ACL. Can the Bloods rebound, or are they destined for a second wooden spoon this year? So we'll start with Phil.
Look, it's interesting. I don't think they'll win the spoon again. I've got a funny feeling that we might see the continual slide of North Adelaide, and Chrissy Steen's moved on. They've obviously got Jason Farrell, who's a premiership coach at Glenelg and a great coach in that. But I just worry about the depth or lack thereof at the Roosters. So I think we'll continue to see the Roosters slide. I think West Adelaide will have an improved season. Bruce Dorr in his second year. And I don't know that we'll see the Bloods play finals footy, but I think we'll see them off the bottom of the ladder.
Darth?
Yeah, it was because I saw them firsthand last Saturday, and I thought they were excellent. I thought they matched up well. They tackled hard. They ran well. You know, they used the ball really well. You know, their switching was brilliant, and I thought, mate, this team's on the up, and we better watch them as well. Even the Eagles have improved quite a bit, but I think this is a team to watch this year. There was just something different about them majorly different compared to last year.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to see. I mean, hopefully they do get Lauren Young for the first 5 games, so at least they'll have a little bit of AFL star power to it. But the good thing is they're going to have to move on from that young lady because again, she'll have I think a stupendous AFLW career. But I'm looking forward to the Bloods with hopefully a bounce back season this year. My next question is going to make Darsh just grin because we've been talking about it plenty enough. Could this be the year Woodville West Torrens makes their finals debut? Darsh, will we see them when the whips are cracking at the end of the year?
Again, I'm taking my Eagles hat off to say they were brilliant last Saturday, and I think the way they've been training, as I said, they've got 12 new players from last year. That's incredible what Narelle's done. She's recruited perfect to fill the gaps in around the ground. So therefore, even if a few players, they'll be playing not called reserves, it's called something else, but they'll be pushing the players in the A's to say you better keep performing because I'm there waiting for my turn in the spot as well. So We got a boarder, Rosie Clancy Dillon, her name is. I said, "How's training going?" She goes, "It's just been brutal." I've been watching it, but she says it's absolutely brutal. Saturday mornings they're up at the Uni Loop doing time trials most Saturdays and 2 nights a week in weights. She said it's just been, and I think you're right, Donnie. They just clicked together. This group, new players, but they're so clicked together. I watch them on the ground. They talk well, speak well. It's just, I think it's a much different team than last year, or majorly from the years before, but different from last year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I
Obviously,
tend
we
to
have
agree
we
because
lost Shanna Goody. That's a lot good for her, but we have lost her, which is a big shame. But that's that's football, and we wish her all the best and hope she'll come back when she's in many years to come when she finishes at Port.
Mm-hmm.
and I tend to agree. I think there will be just that organic improvement from Woodville West Torrens. You've got some depth there this year, as you touched on, as we were talking before we went on air. Leah Cutting coming back, an experienced girl in SANFL circles, played in the AFL with a couple of clubs. But I like Mackenzie Dowrick coming back. I saw a little bit of her before she got picked up by the Crows. She's a strongly built forward who can kick goals. And then you talked about Rose Clancy Dillon, who comes over from Claremont with some big raps. So just some depth, some other girls coming across from other SANFL sides. Rosetta Zarella, Jessie Sanford from the Bulldogs. They're going to be players that will add to the depth. And I think we will see a stronger Woodville West Torrens. And how can you not, have a bit of a soft spot for them when they're coached by a wonderful lady in Narelle Smith? She's, just a patriarch of SANFL women's footy, and we wouldn't have the standard of the competition we don't have today without her. So, yeah, I think there will definitely be some improvement from the Eagles.
Here. I 100% agree. Like I said, I took a bold jump last year, hoping to inspire, and I know that Narelle kind of gave me a heart emoji on my message when I let her know that hey, I said my bold statement was I think you guys make finals next year, and I think she was pretty happy to hear that I had the faith in her. But I 100% agree. She's beaming about the group that she's got this year, so I think this is going to be a fun year to be an Eagles supporter. So but I got to go to this. I was going back and forth with Phil over the off season because how exciting is it that this year we have a 14 game home and away season for the women. Again, pushing for more and more SANFL W games. I absolutely love it. How excited are you for more women's footy? Because I think this is only a positive thing, not only for the competition, but for women's footy in general. Phil, how is your excitement level, especially for you? You get to call more footy.
Absolutely, can never complain about that, and that's why I'm happy to call trial games on the weekend. It won't be broadcast anywhere, but just to put the cans back on and get back in the commentary box is a great thrill. And I think it's going to be important for that continued growth of the game. And I use the word organic growth, but we're in season 8 now. We've had such an improvement of not only the competition in general, but just the standard as well. I've noticed, being a regular observer of it, the quality of the games is going up a level. We're seeing higher scoring games, and we're seeing more girls, that we've talked about it a few times. These younger girls that started holding a footy when they were 6 and 7 years old have had pathways. Pathways have been the key. And I think the quality of the SANFL women's competition is now reaping the rewards of those pathways. And I think 14 games, wow, that's going to be fantastic. Much better than 10.
Definitely, for sure. Darcy, your thoughts again as a Woodville
Oh,
West
Phil's
Torrens?
100% correct. He's just 100%. As I said, the pathways did start about 10 years ago, and now we're seeing the rewards come. In the next 5 years, we're going to see just SANFL in AFL as well, just boom, I think. So talking to, obviously, Rosie that stays there, she goes, I think soon they're going to even take us more seriously. We start playing grand finals at Adelaide Oval rather than at Nordover. Yes, I know. Yeah, you want to see the crowds look like it's crowded, but they want to see it at Adelaide Oval and the AFLW at the MCG, not at the Carlton home ground. That's when they really feel like we are very serious now. You're taking us very seriously when they're playing at Adelaide Oval and even the MCG. So, and I think that's going to happen soon. And I think it's exciting times for the women's football. It's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I would just a comment on the AFLW. I think they should do Marvel first before they try to do MCG, because I think if you can prove you can do Marvel since it's just a little bit smaller. And again, I'm not trying to tamper down expectations. It's just that I think Marvel is a ladder step to be able to say, hey, the only issue that I run into with the AFLW grand final is that with the set of where the season is, the cricket becomes an issue. Like that's the biggest thing. Could they talk the G out of not putting the cricket pitch in until after a women's grand final? Can they do that? I don't think so. Not with the unfortunately with the Boxing Day test. That's my worry there. And again,
Mm.
not going off of on an AFL, we are a
No,
SANFL.
just they won't be taken
So
seriously. I think that would be
I
it's
agree.
years to come, but I think that's when they know we have been very taken seriously now.
Yep.
So
It's the
but,
natural
Like,
progression,
I
isn't
think
it? Really.
yep.
it is. And I think when it's funny when you see the under 18 grand final over there play the MCG in front of 500 people, you think, well, surely the women is coming soon.
Mhm.
Correct? Not in the short term, but certainly soon.
Yep, I 100% agree with you on that one. So like I said, I want it to happen, but that's the
Yeah,
only
no,
that's the only
yeah,
hiccup that I see. So
absolutely. Yeah.
all right, but I love it. Again, I saw the 14 matches. Like I said, I texted Narelle and I texted Ali and I said, how good is this? How good is this? More
Mhm.
footy, and they were both over the moon.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is that I think so many talk about the pay for these players. They just want to play. They just want to play. They want to play more games. If they can get 14 games and stay at the same pay that they were at the previous time, they would take it. I remember talking to Najma Allen. She literally joined the SANFL just so then she could play 10 more games and then go back to the Canberra League and then play 10 games there. So for
Mm.
many of these women, that's all they want. They just want to play footy. That's basically it. They said the pay is minuscule. The pay is something they think about, but not like it's not number one. They just want to play more games. So absolutely love it. So and then we'll end it with I always do this. Centrals had their great again. It's like I planned this. Phil will now get his smile during this part of the episode as Central had their magical season, winning the premiership and their first ever appearance in the grand final. Could we see a repeat? Or are we looking at another team being the Smoky to win the flag? Phil, we'll start with you. Can Centrals do the repeat, or is this going to be a very tough way to try to get a second flag in 2 years?
Yeah, look, the heart says, of course they will. They'll win it back to back, and they'll win it comfortably. I'm not sure it'll be against South Adelaide again, but I think the head says, and we touched on it earlier, it's going to be another even competition. I think every year it's easy at the start of the year to put a bit of a blanket comment out there and go, look, every team will improve, and it should be a pretty even season. But you can really mount a case for every team. We talked about the improvement expected out of the two bottom teams in the Bloods and the Eagles.
Mhm,
And you would expect that the Dogs haven't lost a lot of quality. Obviously, Elan Grigg goes to the Western Bulldogs.
mhm,
But they've retained all of their premiership side basically and done some selective recruiting. I caught up with Ben Hunt, the coach of the Bulldogs girls, on the weekend at the trial game, and he's excited. He's in great shape himself personally. He's dropped 20 kilos, and he's looking at a picture of him of his former self. And the girls are up and about. Yes, they got touched up comfortably by the Tigers, but you know what? I speak of the Tigers. I'm going to say now, I think we might see the Doggies and the Tigers play off in a grand final, perhaps.
definitely, definitely. And the other thing too is I love that Caitlin Wendland was able to come back after
Yeah.
a little stint up in Brisbane. Sad to see her not be able to stay on with it with Brizzy, but it's great to see her back in Stanford. She's an incredible player. Love that she is back. So that is fantastic. So
And a fun
Darce,
fact on her, Donny, she's Dust. She's actually a triplet. She's got two other sisters that will make a comeback this year from knee reconstruction. So there'll be three potential Wenland girls. We talked about the Gowans twins in years gone by. We're going to have the
Yeah,
Wenland
it's
triplets
me.
running around for the Bulldogs girls.
that is fantastic. It would be fantastic. I know it might be a caller's nightmare, but how
Yeah.
crazy would it be for all three of them to be on the ground?
Wenland to Wenland to Wenland. Wenland kicks a
Exactly.
goal.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. All right, Darsh, your thoughts. Can Centrals redo it, or is there another team that you're looking at being the flag hopeful this
No,
year?
look, I think that's what's so good about this weekend is I'll be able to see Centrals. What I mean, Phil did see him last week. If I see him this week and say, yeah, they've got it, I'll be very interested to see where Eagles. Phil said, how many did you have out last week?
Oh,
Phil,
maybe
four.
4 or 5, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if Eagles do, if they play well this week without those four players, I think okay, they're in for a big chance when those four players come back. I think so because they've had the one game, got a bit of cobwebs out. Eagles, they've improved substantially from what I can see against Westies and from last year. I think this week to watch these two sides together. I know it's a trial, but I think that the girls give everything they possibly can. I reckon I'll probably see we a Centrals again, or maybe they've just dropped off a bit. And the Eagles coming into the finals.
Yeah, and it'll be very very interesting. And I just want to throw this in is seeing some of the new coach, like I said, the new coaches coming into the SANFL men and the women's competition. I'm very interested to see how Brad Farrell does at Norwood. I saw their trial game result was Norwood put up some points. So again, I know it's a trial game, so I don't want to put too much into it because again, you don't know who is full strength and what. But if that's any indication, Norwood could be a fun one to watch this year too. So I'll be fascinated to see how that one goes. But I'm with you, Phil. I agree,
Mm.
completely agree with you that I could see Central's doing it again because again, most of that team is back. And like Elaine Grigg did find herself over in Victoria through the draft. And again, all the best to her. I think she will be a doggy to doggy move, which I think is kind of perfect. She doesn't have to worry about changing any color schemes, which is it's
That's it.
fantastic. But I'm very interested again. Shelby Smith is one of the best captains in the entire competition. She's so much fun to watch. I cannot wait. It'll be but there are so many teams I'm looking at. I'm interested to see how Sturt does this year. I'm they're another team that I'm interested to see how they go. And then again, North Adelaide is one of those where did have they lost too much? Are they on that downward trajectory as you kind of say? So again, this women's comp is going to be so much fun. Cannot wait for it to get started in only a couple of weeks. I cannot wait. Like I'm speechless almost because I'm so excited. I cannot wait. So we will jump from the women's to the men's. I don't want to take time during the season to do a men's preview. So we will do it now. So we'll start on the men's competition. We'll start off just like I did with the women's. Take your teams out of the equation just for a quick second. Who is a team that you're keeping an eye on this year in the men's competition? Phil, we'll start with you.
Yeah, look, I think it's hard not to be impressed by the I suppose improvement from the Bulldogs, and yes, taking the bias aside, I think we'll continue to see them surprise some people. For mine, I'm really keen to see how Norwood bounce back. Obviously, a horrific premiership title defence, losing their first 8 games, but they really got a run on in that back half of the year, and I suppose they knew they weren't going to make the finals, but they wanted to shape the finals. And Jade Rawlings, Twig, the coach out at Norwood, there certainly had an impact with the side in the back half of the year. I think they're the team to watch because they've done some good recruiting. They've lost a lot of quality, but I really do think we'll see the Redlegs back up around the mix in 2024.
Mm-hmm. Darce?
Yeah, that's why I'm nodding because I think again Phil's nailed it. I think Norwood would be the one to watch big time this year. I think you don't go from premiers to nearly the wooden spoon. They made it for the end of the year, but I think they're going to continue that what they did at the end of last year, just the momentum into next year. So Jess Lonigan, remember Jess played at Eagles,
Yep.
Suns player. He's now one of the assistant coaches out there, so he might be
Saw
get a bit
that.
of a
Yeah.
yeah, bit of bump in there as well. I think bit of experience in there for the lads. So, and we wish them all the well. Obviously, it's good if he wants to be a coach, you move out of the Eagles at Summerers first, and then you never know what will happen in the future. But I think, yeah, we wish him all the best. He's a fantastic bloke too.
It'll definitely be interesting for me. The team I'm keeping an eye on, and I'll ask more of the question later, is Port Adelaide and Adelaide, and I'll kind of explain it just in a little bit. So we'll go to the next. We'll go to the next question. As you kind of took my question away from me a little bit. Is my next question was Norwood struggled last year, coming off a premiership again, almost as Dar said, almost coming up with the wooden spoon after winning a premiership. So can the legs rebound this season? And kind of what I gathered from both of you is that they definitely can. So it'll be fun. But I mean, my biggest thing is can they make finals, or is this another one of those competitions where just every year is a completely different animal? Darius, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think, gee, without knowing what's really, I mean, we know what's happened over the summer, then how the club's coming all together. That's the thing. Okay, trial games, it gets a bit of cobwebs out, they're trying new things, and you just hear about these new recruits. But Norwood, I think from what happened last year, that doesn't happen to a club like Norwood, especially. They're a very proud club, history's there. They don't go from top to nearly bottom to they'll bounce back, no doubt about it. I think they've got the hunger in the belly for it.
Phil?
Yeah, and I think a little bit of luck's going to come into play. Let's face it, it will come into play with every club. But for the Redlegs, I'd suggest that what's gone out is maybe not necessarily as what's come in isn't as strong, rather, as what's gone out. Nick Rokar, reigning best and fairest, Maddie Nunn, their premiership skipper, they've lost some depth. And what's come in is a little bit of an unknown. They're recruiting some guys from Tassie, obviously the connection that Jade Rawlings has, but they've got Mitch O'Neill from the Panthers, a ball magnet, has some suspicion over his concussion issue, so whether or not that'll impact his amount of time he can get out on the park. But one to watch, Billy Cootie from the Essendon VFL system and a captain for them at just 22 years of age, some massive raps. So I think he'll cover the loss of Rokar to an extent. But yeah, luck on the side of the legs. We'll see them, I think, certainly improve on last year, maybe just pushing for a finals berth.
Mm-hmm. definitely for sure. And then we'll again we'll broach the subject just the tiniest bit because I'm one of those that sometimes I think off the field incidents can affect play. So will the drama of Port and possibly Adelaide departing the VFL cause their teams to suffer in the SANFL comp this year? Darce, we'll start with you.
Look, I know Michael Godden very well, coaching Crows, and he used to coach the Eagles. And he takes his attitude was we win at all costs. He was attitude. He would take the noise away from it. What's going on? He would get the players who play with him, whether it's the top up players or whether the players that are just trying to get the Crows. He would make sure that they win at all costs. He's a determined bloke, and I think he wants a premiership again, no doubt about it. He missed out. Got one at the Eagles, missed out, I think, 3 or 4 times. It was unfortunate. So he's still got the fight to win a premiership regardless where he is. I don't think there'll be any noise whatsoever with Michael Godden. Port, I think it wouldn't upset them as well. I think because the players there want to play AFL. I think the players that don't make the AFL, they're determined to play. So they'll give their everything as well to make sure they have that crack at the top level.
Phil?
Yeah, I think somewhat of a challenge for Port Adelaide will be the depth for them. Obviously, their AFL list is strong. Probably the criticism of them in recent seasons is they haven't had the same quality of top-up players. And first-year coach Hamish Hartlett, of course, will now face off against brother Adam at the Bloods. It'll be interesting to see how the brothers go when those two sides clash. But I think like any player, whether you're an amateur league player, a semi-professional or an AFL-listed player, the minute you cross that white line, your focus is to do your job at hand and to play footy and to beat your opposition, to win your own game. And I think the white noise in the background, whilst at times might be distracting, I think it's only going to be distracting for the spectators and the commentators and us guys because it's the topic at hand. Yes, it's relevant. But I think, as I said, once the players hit the park, that's what they're out there to do a job, and that's what they'll do.
Yeah, I agree. But sometimes sport is weird. Sometimes so it was just something that I thought I was very interested in. And then a fun one. We'll give Darce a spotlight here as Woodville West Torrens sees the appointment of Sam Jacobs at the helm of the Woodville West Torrens senior side. Does his appointment make the Eagles a finals contender, or is Big Sauce team still in the developmental stage? So Darce will start.
No, definitely not. He's been around a long time. Source played a lot of footy, a lot of AFL. He again, I'm talking about this fire in the belly. He has got it. And you talk to the players. I see quite a few of the players, and I said, "How is it?" He goes, "It's just been brutal, as in a good way. He just knows how to run them to a certain point, knows how to get them working hard to a certain point." He says they just got them right, and he's. Yeah, don't worry about Source. I think he's mate. When I heard that, I thought it was the best thing that's happened to Eagles. I thought, because you always think who the coaches out there that bring someone from a SANFL club and an ex AFL coach potentially, but Sam Jacobs, he's clean, he's fresh, he's new, he's got these fantastic ideas. I think that will be in the. I've got to say it's the right way. That will make the finals. Whether how far we go, I don't know. But look, fourth, fifth, it's better than what happened in the last few years.
Phil?
Yeah, and I think the process was followed, wasn't it? Obviously, the board made the right decision because Sam was the best candidate out of those that were interviewed. And I think from a neutral perspective, I suppose the question that might be asked is, well, there's the unknown of Sam's coaching capabilities. He hasn't officially coached a team in his own doing, in his own right. He's been involved with Flagstaff Hill as an on-field playing coach. But sometimes I think you've got to pave way to relationships. And I think a modern-day coach is someone who has those relationships. And anyone you talk to that can't say a bad word about Sam Jacobs, he's a people person. His work at the Crows before taking the Eagles gig was community engagement. So he knows how to engage people and interact with them. And I think he'll have a younger group. There's a lot of quality players that have either retired or moved on from the Eagles. So he will have a younger group. But I think that's the perfect group for him. And I think we will see some improvement. And at the end of the day, you think back to, 2002 when Alistair Clarkson coached Centrals, and then a guy called Roy Laird took over. He didn't have much coaching experience. You've all got to start somewhere.
Yeah, 100% with you. And I like I said, with Darce's help, I had the pleasure of sitting down with Sam Jacobs, and he was incredibly engaging. The smile on his face as he's talking to an American about footy, and he came off. He's very, very confident that he knows that he's ready for this, and I cannot wait for it. I think he's going to be fun. It's great for the competition to see a former AFL player come and coach at the state league at a club that he has so much passion for because that's where he played his SANFL footy. So I'm super excited for him. I think it's going to be a great appointment. I cannot wait for it. That's going to be so much fun to see Sauce on the sidelines or up in the coach's box. It will be fantastic. So, and we always end with Glenelg was the class in the competition, winning the premiership. There, you can't deny it. The hardware is in the base trophy cabinet. So we got to ask, can they repeat, or will we see another team raise the flag this year? So I'm very interested. Can we see a repeat by the Bay? Phil?
Yeah, look, I think after they won the premiership and the dust settles and the celebrations are there, and then you start hearing about some retirements and some player movements. And the first one that straight away their captain in Max Proud decided to hang up the boots, and then no more than a fortnight later has been talked out of retirement. And to me, you won the premiership last year, but you're only as good as the team you're going to have the following year. And I'm briefly looking now at the ins and outs for the Tigers, and you lose Toby Pink, Luke Partington, Brett Turner was a late out. I guess they weren't expecting Brody Newman, all premiership players and all quality, but they've brought in some quality. So Chris Curran, a returning skipper, premiership captain of the club. Will Gould, we know, is a talent who spent some time with Sydney. So I think the outs are offset by the quality of the ins. And I think under Darren Reeves, the Tigers not necessarily going to say they'll go back to back, but they're going to be a strong team and they're going to be around the mark, no shadow of a doubt.
Mm-hmm. Great, Darth.
Yeah, look, Glenelg have been a bit of an unknown over the summer. There's not much been said about them. It's like, we hear a lot of Eels and Sturt and maybe the Centrals and that, but Glenelg was sort of, even though they won the grand final, because they probably won the grand final, they probably just kept to the side here. I know Paul Sandico pretty well, their football director, football manager. And I said to him last year, before they won the grand final, how you looking? He goes, yeah, not too bad. And he said the same to me again a few weeks ago. So when the football director says something like that, there's something going on, something brewing in the background. So the previous years he said, yeah, look, we need to do this and that. It's sort of this very switched on. Yeah, we're doing okay. So I think they'll again, as Phil said, whether they go back to back, I think they'll be up there again. I think they're a very competitive side, very proud club. I think the coach, after 1 year, you get the first year coach that comes out and wins. Is it first year? Sure, it was. Comes out and wins a grand final. That's just gold. So I think you just keep that momentum up with the boys.
Yeah, as a Swan supporter, I was sad to see them let Will Gould go, but I'm happy that he found his way back to the SANFL, and I think he's got a really good game. It transfers well. I think he'll be a great addition to the Tigers, which is scary to think they were already a really good team, and you add a quality player like that. So we'll have some fun. I know this is never fun for some people, but we go to predictions. So I like I said, I sent you guys all this to copy so my co-hosts have it. Just like my waffle one is already went, we will do wooden spoon, biggest faller. What team will descend on the ladder? Biggest improver, final four or final five, depending on what competition we're talking about. Grand final teams and who they think are going to be the premiers. So we're gonna have a little bit of fun with this. Trust me, I'm not going to try to keep track of this because this is always so much fun. So we'll start with the women's competition here. We will start with the ladies. I want to get the ugly out first, the wooden spoon. So Darth, who do you think is most likely going to end up with the wooden spoon at the end of the year?
Yeah, my vote's North Adelaide. I think it's on the slide. Haven't recruited well much this year. If you look at the names of ins and outs, and just haven't got very much depth there. So I think it's going to continue to slide from next year. This year, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, Phil.
Yeah, I concur. I think I touched on it earlier when we did talk about the women. I think, that their form later in the year wasn't the greatest. I think they only won 2 out of the last 7 games. So I see the Roosters probably not improving on last year and dropping down a peg or two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of with you on that one. I worry that most of the teams around them got better, and I think they kind of stagnated a little bit. I'm like, I don't think they got worse. I just think they stagnated a little bit at like the worst possible time when a lot of teams around them got a little bit better. So I agree with you. I think North Adelaide, Wooden Spooner, biggest faller. I'm interested on this one. So Phil, biggest team that will descend down the ladder a little bit.
I'm going to go the Panthers, and I hate to say this because I'm a big fan of Rick Watts. They finished the minor round, comfortably on top, 10 wins, 2 losses, and of course the heart-stopping grand final. And again, I'm not sure that the depth that they've brought in covers what's gone out, and I think other teams are going to improve around them a little bit more. So I'm not suggesting South Adelaide will do a Norwood and finish down the back end of the ladder, but I just think we might see them slide down to the mid part of the table.
Yep. Darth.
Well, I know I'm taking the easy option, but I have to agree again. It's just that because you just see all the same teams, like Eagles are going to improve, and then Westies are going to improve as well, and Centrals, can they finish the top? It's all the same around about, if that makes sense. I'm going to have to agree with, yeah, South Adelaide again. So South are it's a team that's sort of way down south. It's freezing cold. I know Central is up north and it's a fair way away, but south is it's freezing cold. If people keep motivated, they get no crowds down there. It's just hard to get even the crowds motivated down there to to go and attend the games, and that must surely puts the players off sometimes. But it's south for me as well.
Yeah, and I'll make it 3 for 3. But
Yeah,
it's like as you both
yeah.
said, I worry that the draft really, I think the draft really got South because again they were young, they were super talented, but I worry that Holly Eiffel, like I said, goes to WA, and then the limited ability of Brooke Beaulieu and Allison Brooke, I think are both are going to affect this team. Again, I still think they're around abouts for finals potentially. Again, it just all depends on how is Norwood, how is Sturt, how are some of these teams that made finals last year that I think improved, but we'll have to see can they improve big time. Centrals, how do they handle again being the hunted instead of the hunter this year? And then teams like Westies, teams like Woodville West Torrance, and then how does North Adelaide? Do they end up playing spoiler a lot? Because you know that there's some experience on this North Adelaide team, so they're going to cause some issues. Again, this comp is very close. This could come down to could come down to goal differential and points and percentage at the end. So it'll be fun. So all right, biggest improver. I'm interested if this is going to be all the same. So Dax, we'll start with you. Biggest
Okay, look,
improver.
definitely the Eagles. There's no doubt about it. I can even take my Eagles hat off here. From they've recruited. There's 12 new players there. Recruited well. They've covered the gaps. I think they finished eighth last year. Was it seventh or eighth? So I think they can
Seventh, yeah.
actually improve into the finals from that. The other one maybe a surprise is West Adelaide. They finished bottom last year. I think just watching last week, they were they weren't any rollover either. They Eagles, they're up to Eagles up to a 3/4 time. Then I think our fitness was just kept us going to kick the 3 goals in the last quarter. So I'm going to say West Adelaide, just just a watch on the side here. Just keep an eye on these guys. I think they're going to be okay.
All right, Phil.
Yeah, and it's hard not to agree with you guys in regards to the excitement around the Eagles. And I had a quick look at their results the other day in terms of last year's losses, and bar 2 or 3 blowouts. They had some tight losses, which
Mm.
you'll get improvement when you've got a bit more experience in your squad and a bit more confidence to play games out. So instinctively, I do want to say the Eagles, but having seen the Tigers again firsthand, I'm a bit bullish about them because they're a quality side. They've got a good coach and they've recruited well. So they finished just outside the 5 and probably shot themselves in the foot in the last 3 or 4 games with some bad kicking for goal. But I do see the Tigers improving and comfortably getting into the finals.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And I'm like I said, I said it last year with the bold ones. I think Woodville West Torrens, I honestly legitimately think they compete for the finals this year. Again, I agree with Darce. Not sure if a flag is on the radar, but Woodville West Torrens, I think they're going to be fighting for that fourth spot. I honestly think they will. So it'll be a lot of fun. So all right, here's the fun one that some people will come back and remember. Who's making finals? Who are the 4 teams that you will see playing in the pointy end of the season? Phil, we'll start with you. What 4 are going to be competing for a flag?
Well, I touched on South Adelaide dropping away, in my opinion, but I don't think they'll drop out of the 4. I think they'll sneak in and play finals. And as the ladder stood last year, South Central, Norwood, Sturt. I think if one team's going to drop out, and sorry, Ali, if you watch this back, I think the Redlegs might just drop out just outside the 5 because, again, I think we'll see some improvement from Glenelg. So I'm going to go the Bulldogs, the Panthers, the Double Blues, and the Tigers to be in the top 4 for the women's in 2024.
Awesome. Darce?
Well, not in any order. I'm going Central's going to be there again. Eagles are going to scrape in.
Mhm.
Nord, I think, are going to stay in for mine, and Glenelg.
All right. The crazy part, Darce, is you just did my exact one. I see I legitimately went through. I'm looking at it going, okay, Central Districts, I think Norwood. I think again at the trial games again. I kind of on and off on this one, but I've liked what I was in. Glenelg was really Glen. I think Glenelg played really well. South Adelaide was one of those. I was fighting with it because of the loss, so I'm the same. Centrals, Norwood, Glenelg, and Woodville West Torrance. I think are my 4 to make the final. All right, the grand final teams. Who are the two teams playing in the grand final? And then we'll say premiers right after that. So two teams in the grand final, Darce.
Okay, I will go for Centrals and Glenelg with Centrals because they've got those. I think they were lost last week before their top players out last week. I think they come in, start playing as a team again during the year, which they will. Centrals Glenelg with Centrals going back to back.
Okay, Phil.
Yeah, I'm going to concur. I touched on it earlier that I think we'll see some improvement from the Tigers, and I'd like to think the Dogs are going to be strong enough to again be around the mark. I'd rather it not be so tight and close at the end like it was the last season, but yeah, hard not to say the Doggies going back to back by a couple of goals.
Yeah, and then I'm the same way. I have the Tigers and the Duggies in the grand final. It's again, that's going to be one heck of a grand final. It'll be fantastic. I cannot wait. So you both have said your premiers. I specifically didn't. I think that I'm. I love this because I feel like it's like, do I disappoint Phil or do I suck up to my to my panelists? Actually, you know what? Even with Elaine Gregg leaving, I agree with you. I think Centrals goes back to back. I think that this core that they've got is really, really good. Again, I mean, I think the re-edition of Caitlin Wendland, I think, puts them over the top a little bit for me because of Shelby Smith again is one of the best leaders in the entire competition. So I agree with you. I think I'll have the Doggies go back to back, but Glenn Dog's going to be in this. I know Phil, you may not like it, but I think it's another one that comes down to the side, could even be down to close to the siren kick because that's how good this Glenelg team I think has a chance to be this year.
Yep.
So we will jump over. So we've done the women, so we know that the Central District's Bulldogs for all of us are going to be premiers there. We're going to jump to the men. This is going to be a fun one. So we'll jump over to the men's competition. Same thing, wooden spoon. Unfortunately, we'll get the negative out of the way first. Darce, who is your wooden spoon for the men's competition this year?
I still think it's going to be out of South or Westies, and I'll probably toss the coin and then say West Adelaide to finish bottom.
All right, Phil.
Yeah, well, I'm going to toss the same coin with South on one side and the Bloods on the other. And I think there's a little bit of upside to West Adelaide. Adam Hartlett's settled in now as a very good coach and a great communicator. And as much as I love Jared Wright and a former Eagles man, I just think South are going to continue to be on the slide. They've been the disappointing team of the competition for a while now. And I don't know that they've recruited all that well. They've done a lot of local recruiting, trying to get back to their zone. So I've flipped the same coin, but mine's come up the Panthers taking the wooden spoon.
Right. And I will and I think those were the two that I had too. I was going back and forth, but I think I'll agree with you on that one, Phil. I think South will be my wooden spooner this year. So biggest faller. I'm interested on this one. Phil, who's descending down the ladder the most this year?
Yeah, look, that's a difficult one. I instinctively think that maybe the Tigers might drop off just a smidge because of those quality outs, and it's always a very difficult one to put any kind of forecast on the AFL reserve side, regardless of the noise that's happening in the background about where their future lies. There's the unknown of their top-up players, the injuries at the next level. So whilst I'm a fan of the Crows and their system and setup in the SANFL, I think we might see Adelaide just fall down a peg or two on the men's SANFL side of things.
Okay, Darce.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. I was thinking of the traditional, not thinking about the Crows or Port Adelaide, actually. So I'll probably change my mind. I think you're probably right with the Crows. I know, and apologies for that. I was honest and upfront saying, I was just thinking of the traditional ones. And then even though I did say before about Michael Godden, he won't take anything over the noise in that. I think, again, where did they finish last year? I was
Third.
third. Yeah. If they drop to 6, that's a fall. If they finish out of the 5, they still do okay, I think, next year. But I think they would just finish out of the 5. Good. That's a good point, that Phil. I just didn't. I was thinking they were the traditional SANFL clubs.
Yeah, and I just think also, guys, that the quality of their outs, particularly some of the the Matty Wrights and the Jackson Hateleys, the top up players and the fringe players that were very good SANFL footballers, couldn't quite make it at AFL level. The guys coming in are amateur players that haven't had a lot of exposure at SANFL level, and kids coming through. Hear about all the excitement about young Daniel Curtin coming through, but I think he'll play AFL footy, and we won't see him at SANFL level. So I just think the quality of the outs for the Crows might just impact their performance at the end of the year.
Yeah, I was going to agree with that. I think the only way you see Daniel Curtin in a SANFL game is if he had an injury, picks up an injury, and is on like a kind of a rehab stint to be able to get him some footy without having to worry about exposing him to the top level competition. So it's a good way there. I'm with you guys. I think Adelaide, I was kind of leaning a little bit, even Port a little bit, just because I think all that noise and the epicenter of the noise, I think sometimes can affect teams. I know they say once you step in between the white lines, they're not worried about it. But this is a huge talking point. It's going to be something that a lot of fans in the outer are going to discuss. Will it seep into the club a little bit? Plus, there's a lot of pressure on the AFL side to do a lot of things. So are they going to sacrifice SANFL results to be sure that the Port Adelaide team that just re-signed Kenny Hinkley, and there's a ton of pressure on him to do something this year. Will the SANFL side pay for it a little bit? So I think Port actually is my biggest faller this year. I know they just made finals this year. I potentially could see them falling out. So biggest improver, I'm interested to hear on this one. Darce, who's your biggest improver this year?
Again, I mean, Eagles, because obviously when they finished, obviously eighth, I think it was eighth last year. Only way is up, and I think what Sauce has done this year, he's filled some gaps. He's recruited very, very well from interstate. We've got two ruckmen; they're all about 6'7", 6'8", two young kids. Jared Redden's back. Jared Redden, ex-Port Adelaide player. Yep, he's back playing. But he's coaching his kids as well, which is fantastic. I watched him a couple of weeks ago, and Jared, he just gets these kids and puts one hand out. But that's good for these kids because it's against an experienced guy like Jared Redden that's teaching these young kids, hey, this is what you need to do. If I can push you away, you've got to start doing this to players. And I think what he's doing the ruck with these tall kids and the gaps they've filled from the recruits from his state, I reckon we're on the move.
Okay, Phil?
Yeah, we touched on it a little bit before. I think, based on the horrific start that the Redlegs have, we'll see some improvement in them. But I think North Adelaide, they were slightly disappointing last year by Jacob Surgeon's admission. They probably weren't hungry enough around the ball, and they've got some quality players going out, no doubt, but they've done some very good recruiting. And one thing, I think I talked about it with the women, it's key to get off to a good start to the season and to improve. You're going to want to win games at home. And the Roosters have something like their first 5 out of their 6 games are at home. So with the backing of their very vocal home crowd, I think we might see some improvement from the Roosters.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and that's why I was looking at. I was looking at North Adelaide and Norwood being the teams that I think potentially could slot up there and sneak into the final 5 this year. So I can't really cut between the two of them because I think both those teams potentially could be fighting for finals this year. So now the fun one, the final 5. Who are the 5 teams making the finals this year? Darce, we'll start with you.
Not in any order. Eagles, Sturt, Nord, Glenelg, Port. I still think Port are going to scrape in. I still think they're, I just still think they'll make the 5, and that's my prediction there.
All right, Phil.
Yeah, look, I think I'm going to have Port Adelaide dropping out, so I'm going to go Glenelg, Sturt, Central Districts, the Roosters jumping in front of Port Adelaide, and then a flip of the coin. Maybe Adelaide won't fall as far as I thought. Maybe Norwood might just sneak in, but I'm going to go Glenelg, Sturt, Central, North Adelaide, and Norwood.
Okay. All right. In mine, I'm with you. I'm with you guys in this one. The only flip that I have is that I think Adelaide's a little bit stronger, so I think they'll stay in. So the top 4 from last year, Glenelg, Sturt, Adelaide, Central Districts, all make it. And then I agree with you, Phil. I think the Roosters pip Port and kick Port out of the finals this year. So I have North, Central's, Adelaide, Sturt, and Glenelg making the finals. So fun part, who's going to be playing off in the grand final? Phil?
Look, I want to say Central. I'm not sure that necessarily they'll get that much of an improvement. They were obviously a close one away from a preliminary final. It's hard not to say that the 2 grand finals from last year won't have a similar season. We talked about some changes at Glenelg. The Double Blues are just going to continue to fly under the radar as they do. They've recruited Will Snelling. He's probably the biggest recruit in the SANFL off seasons. Come out of Essendon's AFL system, former premiership player at West Adelaide. So I'm just going to stick with the status quo and say Glenelg and Sturt. Maybe the Doggies might just sneak in, but the Double Blues and the Tigers, and I reckon the Tigers will get the points.
All righty. Darth?
Just so you know, I'm not a copycat, I've circled Glenelg and Sturt, just so you know then. So just so you know, I'm not a copycat, I've circled them before anything. So I'm going for Glenelg and Sturt again. So I said definitely those 2. Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
I did that beforehand too, ages ago. Yeah.
here's the thing. Phil watches a lot of footy when it comes to with calling, so I'm not going to disagree with him, and I agree with him. The recruiting for both of those two sides again, Glen Elk, yes, and it's hard to get quality when you win a premiership. That when quality goes out, it's hard to get that exact same quality.
Mm.
But I think they've done just enough to be able to at least remain where they should be to be a chance. So I agree. And I was gonna say the same thing. Glenelg Sturt, I think rematch in the grand final. Let's see. Do we see a different result? Darce, who's the premier? Does
Yeah,
Glenelg
I
do the
think we'll
Bays
see
go back to
Sturt this
back?
year. Yeah. No, I'll see Sturt this year.
Okay.
I think
All right.
that grand final have hurt them last year. I think Sturt are on the up too. I think Glenelg had a great season, whole season last year. Sturt, yeah, had a few dips there, but they come home well, and I think they'll continue that into next year and pick Glenelg by be a close contest in the GF.
Okay. Phil?
Yeah, and I touched on it before about Will Stelling coming in, but a couple of lesser known quality recruits that the Double Blues will bring in and strengthen their squad. Flynn Perez is a defender from the North Melbourne AFL system, and Sam Conforti, a very exciting, talented forward from Essendon's VFL side. So, yes, they've lost Pat Wilson, and probably their biggest blow, Marty Frederick, going over to the Waffle to be in Perth with his brother. But I
Mm-hmm.
think that's offset by Will Stelling. It's a good like-for-like recruit. And I touched earlier that maybe the Tigers will go back-to-back, but for a mate of mine, Paddy Goldsmith, a solid Sturt supporter, I think he might be pleased to hear me say that maybe the Double Blues will get the points.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting. I was going to say the same thing. I think there's just enough quality that left this Glenelg team, and Sturt's going to have that fire in their belly of falling short, especially in a grand final. So I'm with you. And then just to confirm my thought process here, Mitch Morton is the head coach of Sturt still, correct?
Marty Matner,
Marty Matna. I knew it was
former Sydney
wrong
boy.
name. Yep. I knew it was a Sydney connection, but it
Yep.
was just like my brain. It just yeah. It was so that'll be fascinating for that one. So I'm with you guys. I think Sturt win. I think Sturt come back and kind of avenge a little bit. Some would say the grand final. But gentlemen, that is it. I mean, this again. I'm so excited for the season to get started, both the women's and even the men's as well. I'm super excited. I think both competitions I think are going to be incredibly exciting. I think I know that there's going to be some things that I think we all get wrong, and I'm gladly willing to get wrong because it is definitely a crapshoot to early in the year. But again, gentlemen, thank you again for hopping on again this season. I'm so excited to cover this amazing competition. I know I had a quite a fun discussion with a Glen Elk supporter who got on me to say that it is the SANFL, not the SANFL. I how much I will probably drop SANFL a
Yeah.
lot this year. I know
I
there
say that
there
at
are
Central. It's just
it's a lot to say, I know.
you just don't.
But I wanted to be sure, and I appreciate the passion for it. I think it's fantastic. But and like I said, so excited for this. So, Darce, thank you for hopping on the podcast again this year, sir.
No worries, and look forward to this Saturday, Phil, too. So Central's Eagles trial game. Looks like we've gained Jessie Sanford from Central's,
Yep.
but you've gained Neve Delaney. So she's left Eagles to go to Central. So
Yeah,
bit
so I
of,
like for
bit
like
of
swap,
rivalry
and
there.
yeah, we'll see
Yeah,
who
that's
wins
right,
the Aspinall
exactly.
Evans Cup on Saturday.
Was that sorry? Yeah.
We'll see who wins the Aspinall Evans Cup on Saturday.
That'll
Exactly.
be fun. We'll have to find something fun for that one. But again,
Yeah.
and Phil, again, good luck with your call this year. I wish it would good luck with your call this week. I wish it was on Stanfield now. Unfortunately, they don't put the trial games out. Darn it, but that's okay because I know that in a few weeks I had the lovely ability of watching the SANFL W. Unfortunately, the first two games I'm gonna have to watch on tape delay because the grand time of 3:10 a.m. is when both of them get started. So yay.
Thanks for having us, mate. Excited to be back on board and looking forward to talking to you throughout the course of the year about the great competition that is the SANFL and the SANFL W.
Cannot
Yeah,
wait. It'll be so
absolutely.
much fun. Ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for another episode of Donnie's Disposals. Again, keep an eye out. A VFL preseason preview still to come. I know South Australians and Victorians don't always get along, but we'll just throw that quickly. And then the AFL preview with a very good friend of mine will come out just before the season starts. And then we go footy, footy, footy. Cannot wait for it. So keep an eye out. And that will do it for another episode of Donnie's Disposals. Again, your footy coverage back again very, very soon.